It is finally time to get started on this project.
I'm not scared. I'm not scared. That's gonna look so much nicer. What is 0.875 as a fraction?
It's 7/8.
Oh, okay.
Hey guys, what's up and welcome to my channel. This week, I'm finally getting started. On my living room / entryway makeover. If you are new to my channel, I have been slowly chipping away at this space for several years now, and I've never fully committed to actually doing a makeover in this room. It started with an ottoman, then it went to redoing the built-ins behind me, and then more recently I found a second-hand table on Facebook Marketplace and I redid it to turn it into my TV stand. And then the most recent project was designing and building out my favorite thing I've ever designed and built out, and that was a faux apothecary shoe cabinet for my entryway. But now it is time to stop tiptoeing around this makeover, and it's time to roll up my sleeves and make every inch of this room look and feel how I want it to look and feel. And a few months back, I did a design video about this whole makeover, talking you guys through things that I was definitely going to do in this space, and then also talking you guys through a few options I was still tossing around. And I loved getting your input, and I'm gonna be addressing some of the comments as to why certain people liked option 1 or option 2 more, and then I'll also be telling you guys, of course, why I ended up going with the option that I went with. So with all of that being said, let's finally get started on my living room / entryway makeover. Does this room look just a little bit different than the last time I was filming in here? Guys, I did it. I conquered my fear of heights and I painted this room.
Just don't look down. That's all we gotta do. We just have to not look. Oh, okay.
Well, I kind of conquered my fear of heights. So if you didn't see my design video, I explained in that video that the reason I have kind of been avoiding this makeover and avoiding painting this room was because of this wall behind me. I have a split level entryway, and this large wall above the stairs going down to my basement kind of felt like a daunting task to paint it if, you know, you're a person afraid of heights. So last week, I actually spent 4 whole days getting the painting portion done and out of the way so that we could move on to the fun and more interesting things that I have planned for this makeover. The first 2 days of painting, I spent on the easier, less scary walls, and then by the 3rd day, I could no longer avoid the scary wall.
I can do this. I can do this.
And the other reason I was kind of dreading painting this wall is because I knew I was taking down all of those slatted boards that used to be here, and I was gonna have to spend a good amount of time filling in all of those drywall anchor holes. And actually, I kind of still am working on that, and I need to fill them in more to cover up the holes and make them look as nice as I possibly can. As for painting this wall, I have clips. I have proof that I actually painted this, but I mainly used an extension for my roller to reach this whole wall, and then to paint the crown molding at the top, I actually rigged up a paintbrush on that extension pole with some painter's tape so that I could reach the crown molding, but still have my feet on the ground, where the good Lord intended me to be. And now that the painting is done and out of the way, I am so incredibly happy with how bright and big this room feels compared to how it used to feel. Just a little bit of a design tip for you. If you are working with 8-foot high ceilings like I am, to make your ceilings look as high and as tall and have your room feel as big as it possibly can, you want to make sure you're painting your trim the same color as what you're painting your walls. So in my case, I wanted to make sure that the crown molding and the baseboards were painted the exact same white that I was using on the wall. The only difference with the paint that I used on the trim was, of course, I used a door and trim paint, and I made sure it was a semi-gloss. A semi-gloss or a glossy paint is gonna make it so that the details in the trim pop. But that is the only difference, and then I used a satin on the walls. And having the crown molding and the baseboards the same white has made this room feel so much bigger, and actually just made the ceilings feel a lot higher up than they are. Now that I explained all of that, the painting is done and out of the way, I'm gonna be working on the trim for this room this week. But before I can get started working on the trim, I've got one more thing I have to do.
Be nice, Clyde Kitty. Don't bite him.
I'm not gonna get anything done today, am I? Okay guys, so this is my wall behind my TV, and this is an ugly vent that I have hated. And I have been wanting to figure out a way to disguise this vent a little bit more. The last few years, I have had a blanket ladder in front of this to disguise this vent, but I've been wanting to find a cover that looks a little bit nicer. And through my many hours of scrolling on Instagram Reels, I came across a video where somebody was using this. It is a flush wall vent. So let me take out the packaging so you can see it. It's actually really, really cool. So this vent cover, you're supposed to use joint compound and basically like, drywall it onto the wall. And then whatever color you used on your wall, you're supposed to paint this panel so that this vent is disguised. Or if you use wallpaper, you're supposed to use wallpaper on this part so that, yeah, the vent is just more disguised and it looks a lot nicer. But the reason I need to get this done and out of the way is because I have to use joint compound on it. So I want that joint compound to dry while I work on the door trim. Okay, so I need bonding spray, a stapler, that's interesting, okay. Drywall compound, so joint compound, and then sanding materials, but I don't really need the sanding materials yet. Let me go grab all of that stuff. This vent is probably gonna be so gross. I'm gonna probably wanna vacuum it out. Lovely. Ugh, that is so gross. This is a sign to get your vents cleaned out. Gross. That's gonna look so much nicer. Dry fit, drywall, flush, vent into duct opening. Use bonding spray. Okay, use staples to get it in place. This seems weird. I guess this works. Working with joint compound and drywalling is truly an art form, and I am nowhere near close to mastering that art form. But I think after a few coats of joint compound, that wall vent is gonna look really nice. So while I let that first layer dry, it is time to get started on the trim around my doors. And to refresh your memory, if you saw my design video, I was tossing around two different options. One was doing a slightly more decorative trim around the doorway, and then the other option was doing a more rustic style trim with wood. This is the part of my design that I think I went the most back and forth on, and the reason I went the most back and forth on is because I was trying so hard to make the wood trim work. But ultimately, I just do not think it is the right call for this room and for this space for a few reasons. The main reason was I didn't want the wood trim to compete with this table. I love this table so much, and I love that it's like a really popping wood feature on this wall. And so I thought the wood trim would really take away from that. And then the second reason was I didn't want to take the trim too dark in this space, but I wasn't liking any of the light wood trim that I was seeing. It just very much wasn't the vibe I was going for. And when I was plugging in all of the options into my 3D model program, the wood trim really just like stuck out like a sore thumb, whereas doing a slightly more decorative trim really seemed to fit the feel I was going for in this space. But to address a few comments I got, a lot of people were saying I should go with wood trim because of what I said in the design video where I said my husband gravitates more towards a rustic style. So I wanted to incorporate rustic elements into the room to fit his style, because you know, it's not just Barbie's dream house, it's Ken's dream house. But at the same time, Jordan loves everything that I do, and he has a slightly more traditional style as well. So I know he's gonna also like the trim option I'm going with. The other thing that people were saying was don't go with a decorative trim because they don't like historical looking trim in a non-historical looking house. And I think the pictures I put in the design video were a lot more decorative than I was picturing doing. I wasn't gonna take it like too crazy and ornate. I'm actually gonna be doing something I've already done in another room in my house, and I absolutely loved it. So what I am doing is taking my normal looking trim and I'm gonna be turning it into a craftsman style trim. Yes, I love this because it adds a little bit of a detail at the top of the doorway that draws your eye up and makes the wall and the doorway feel and seem a little bit bigger. So the first thing that I need to do is get this top trim piece removed, get these side pieces cut straight so that I can add the 3 pieces to the top to create a craftsman style look. We can remove the cat toy. Look at me, I'm actually using a ladder for like the first time ever. So now that I have my top trim piece removed, I'm gonna go ahead and cut these corners straight. So I just have my carpenter square, I'm gonna use that to draw a straight line, and then I'll use my multi-tool to cut this little top trim piece off. Yeah, woohoo, that nail came out with the piece. Now I just need to measure this top piece and then go outside and get the 3 pieces cut down to take this normal trim to a craftsman style trim. 58. So the top and bottom piece need to be 60 and the middle piece needs to be 58. So to get my trim attached, I'm using trim screws. Trim screws are really thin screws that don't like split your wood, and they're really easy to fill in that hole. Okay guys, so I just went ahead and did all of the cleanup work on the trim over on that other doorway. So I filled in all of the trim screw holes, and then I also went ahead and did some like caulking around all of the edges to just make everything look seamless and nice. So while all of that dries, I'm gonna get to work on this trim. And the trim for this door is going to be a lot more involved than the other doorway. When we first moved into our house, there actually used to be a door here. I don't know why, but there was. One of the first things I did was remove that door, but then I was left with like a normal door jamb. So there's actually hinges right here. And so I've been for the longest time wanting to fully replace all of this trim and make it a flat door jamb like it is on the doorway to my kitchen. So let's get to work. Yay, I'm finally getting to this like almost 4 years later. Almost there. We got this. One piece left. Okay, I did it. Yay. Everything is removed, everything is cleaned up, and now I can get my new door jamb in place. And I just got a flat door jamb kit. It comes with the 3 pieces all pre-cut. This is notched out at the top. It's really nice. And this piece is a little long, so I do have to get it cut, but I'm first gonna get the side pieces actually attached and installed so I know this exact measurement, and then go get this piece cut down and get it installed.
31.5. Let's go get this piece cut down. Please fit. There you are.
Good morning, guys. I ran into an issue yesterday trying to finish the trim. The issue that I ran into was that a huge rain cloud rolled in real quick, and within like 2 minutes, it went from sunny skies to pouring rain. So I couldn't work outside and get the trim cut down and get this all finished. But I was able to clean up these old side trim pieces. So I got the old nails removed, I sanded the edges back, and then I cut that top angled piece. So I'm gonna quickly get these side pieces attached so that I can measure for the top Craftsman trim that I'm doing. $37.5. Okay, I'm gonna go outside and get these top trim pieces cut down, and over on the other doorway, I made the bottom and the top piece 1 inch longer on each side, but because I have this wall right here, I can't really do that, so I'm just gonna make all of these top trim pieces the exact same length. So these are the old like bottom trim pieces that were right here, but some of them decided to like split and crack when I was taking them off, so I don't want to reuse these. So I actually just went ahead and cut pieces out of the wood that I used for the top trim, and so I'm gonna get these attached really quickly, and since I'm switching out this bottom trim on this doorway, I'm gonna also go ahead and make it the same on the other doorway so that of course they match. Before I get to painting the trim, I have one more thing I want to add to these doorways, and up until last night I was kind of on the fence as to whether I was going to use these or not, because I couldn't really picture what they looked like when I was just like holding them up and trying to see what they looked like. So I had my husband take a very flattering photo of me holding these in place, and the second I saw that photo I knew I wanted to use them. So what I am adding is some corbels. If you don't know what a corbel is, this is one of them, but they can come in all shapes and sizes. They can be really inexpensive, or they can be really, really expensive. And they aren't just used in trim, they can be used to hold up a floating shelf, they can be used to hold up the overhang of a countertop. They're used throughout houses a lot. But I went with a sleek and simple one because I just felt like that fit my house a little bit better, and I also love that it's a way to add just a quick and simple arched effect to my doorway. And yeah, I just like that it adds a fun little detail that is not seen in every house. So I'm gonna get these attached and then we can move on to painting. So my corbels came with brackets on the back. I think that's if you're using these to hold up a floating shelf, but because I'm not using them to hold up a floating shelf, these brackets are gonna get in the way. So I am gonna remove them. So I need to put this at 2 1/4. Where is the middle of my corbel? 1.75 divided by 2. What is 0.875 as a fraction?
It's 7/8.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I have the middle of the corbel marked out and I have the middle of the doorway marked out. So I'm just gonna get those middle lines lined up and then use trim screws to get this attached. 1 down, 3 to go. It is time to finish the wall painting portion of this makeover. So I'm waiting for a few things to dry on the trim before I can get started painting that, but I wanted to finish up this vent with you guys. I have done 3 coats of joint compound over the last 2 days, and then I just sanded that back, and I'm pretty happy with the feathering. I think it looks pretty good. It's not perfect, but again, I'm not like the best at drywalling and working with joint compound, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the wall and this vent cover painted, and then we can move on to painting trim. Okay guys, finally, after several rounds of cleanup work and sanding and re-caulking and spackling and sanding, I am finally ready to paint this trim. And for the longest time, I thought I was just gonna paint the trim white, but the more I thought about it, the more I wanted the trim to pop off of the white walls, but I also didn't want to take the trim too dark. And then I realized I have the perfect color of paint to use. I am going to be using my almost accessible beige that I just used in my kitchen for my coffee bar revamp. If you didn't see that video, I basically started off with one beige, didn't like it, took this paint back to Sherwin-Williams to have them remix it and get me as close to accessible beige as they possibly could. So although this is not accessible beige, it's very, very close. So I'm gonna use this paint, and I think it's like the perfect light color to pop off of the white. Also at the same time, have a nice transition into my kitchen and create a cohesive space between the 2 rooms. So I'm gonna get to painting, and I cannot wait to see what everything looks like painted and all the same color and looking seamless. It's gonna look so nice. Okay guys, this is where I am ending part 1 of my living room and entryway makeover. Honestly, I feel like I could stop here and be totally happy with how this room looks. Painting has completely changed this room for the better, and I am obsessed with the trim that I went with. Even though Craftsman trim is historical trim, it became popular between the 1900s and the 1930s, I still think Craftsman trim has its place in a more modern house, because all it does is take your standard builder grade trim that comes in every house, and it gives it a more elevated and custom and crafted look. Also, I think my way of going about doing the Craftsman style trim is a more modern approach to Craftsman style trim, because I just use 3 pieces of MDF board at the top, so it's a lot boxier and squarer than a lot of the Craftsman trim from the 1900s to 1930s, where they used a lot more molding and had a lot more like rounded edges to it. Also, my corbels at the corner need their moment to shine. They need their moment. I am so glad I added those to the corner. They really just took this trim to the next level. And I love the size and shape that I went with, because they're small and they add a little detail without being too much. And I just want to say that I am going to be taking this project just a little bit slower than I normally do. Because I've waited so long to do this makeover, I really don't want to rush through anything. And I really want to focus on all of the small little details of this makeover, like spending 3 days drywalling an air vent onto the walls. I have found over my 4 years of doing home renovation projects that taking your time and really focusing on all of the small details is really what takes a space from being okay to having a really high-end looking design. And not only does taking things slower help me and help me get a better result in the end, but I also feel feel like I can explain things better to you guys and give you guys a more thorough explanation as to why I'm making the decisions I am making. So I hope you guys liked this video. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.